You're listening to PARTNERNOMICS Podcast, where we discuss the art and science of developing successful strategic partnerships. To learn more about the suite of PARTNERNOMICS solutions, visit PARTNERNOMICS.com.
Welcome back to another episode of PARTNERNOMICS Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Brigman. And on today's show, we have Eyal Zurr with us. So Mr. Zurr is joining us from the other side of the world, at least from where we are here in the U.S., But thank you so much for your time. Thanks for staying after work for you. It's in the morning here, but thanks for staying after work and chatting with
Mark,
us.
Thanks for having me, and a pleasure to be on the podcast.
So you are the Director of Global Strategic Alliances at Monday.com. And really looking forward to this conversation, looking forward to this chat, learning a little bit more about what Monday.com does, and more specifically, kind of digging into your insights and your experience with within partnerships. But I'd like to ask you to just kind of to kick things off, talk to us about your career and how you got started in this business world, and then how you traversed to become the director of Global Strategic Alliances.
Sure, Mark. So first of all, I still want and feel like I'm really young. So talking about my career sounds like I have a lot of gray hair on my head. But certainly, so I studied the business, majoring in finance, and started my career actually working in the stock market industry. And pretty fast, I learned that I need people in front of me and less screens probably. So I did some shifting in my career in the very early days, and started to do some business development initiatives with one of the people I had, a good friend of mine. We were together in a student exchange program in Korea, actually. Really bonded and started doing some different initiatives together. So he was living in Portugal, I was living in Israel. So kind of doing a representation of different companies, Portuguese one in Israel. So Global Renewable Energy, which we represented them here in Israel, and a small startup, which we were kind of the reseller in the European region. So that's basically the early days of my career, after which I founded my own startup along with a bunch of founders. It was in the real estate and technology space. Very exciting times. I think probably the biggest learning curve I had in my career was at that point in time. I spent more than 3 years in this startup. We had some, interesting path that we went through. We built a product from scratch. We raised capital. We did really exciting stuff. And eventually you have a lot of gates which you need to pass through in your startup journey. And at a certain point, we got to a point where we kind of didn't manage to raise the next round. And eventually, after trying more and more, we had to close down. After that, I took a lot of thought of what I really enjoyed doing while working in this startup. Because, you wear a lot of hats when you're in this kind of startup environment and as a founder. And I think my true passion was for business development and creating those strategic partnerships. I joined a company called Get, which is in the mobility space, and started doing some business development and partnerships there. We were like a small startup within the company, mainly focusing on the logistics and last mile delivery. And so my role was to create those kind of partnership with very large logistic companies, and also e-commerce players in that space. Following that, after like 7 months, I managed the business unit. So again, doing more diverse roles in this position. And after more than 2 years, I left the company and started working at Monday.
Yeah, I'm interested to know about the number of startups and just how entrepreneurial people are in Israel. It blows my mind. It's like literally the most entrepreneurial country in the world. Talk to us a little bit, because I'm fascinated by the world of entrepreneurship. All right, so I've started 6 companies, was able to sell 4 of them. What is it about the environment in Israel that's so ripe for startups and for innovation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And probably there are a lot of variables to answer this one. I guess the first one would be probably the energy that you have here in Israel, and especially in Tel Aviv. If you walk by different streets, you'll feel a different vibe. And I think people are very open, very transparent, and always challenging the status quo. So always looking for better ways to do things. And I think people are also fairly creative. So trying to find different ways, different paths in order to achieve better services or better products. So I guess the combination of that, and also the fact that, as a small country, that has, surrounded by hopefully not a lot of enemies, but especially in the early days, we had a lot of enemies, and we had to have a strong army. And there were some units in the military that were very focused on technological aspects, intelligence, and so on. So I guess this was kind of on-job training for a lot of people. And when they, went to market, eventually they could utilize those kind of skills and capabilities.
So tell us a little bit about Monday.com. So the company that you're with now, and you're leading their strategic alliances. Tell us a little bit about the company, the organization, its history, and the solutions that it provides.
Yeah, so I think Monday is a really fascinating company in so many different ways. I think talking about challenging the status quo, I think everything that we do here at Monday is kind of different from what other companies are doing. And I'll try to give some examples to explain this kind of philosophy. So first of all, as a company, the product is what we call a work operating system. So essentially streamlining all projects, all processes and workflows, all the planning and really everyday work into one centralized workspace. So I think especially nowadays when we have the COVID and people need to work from home, this is very essential to a lot of companies and employees to have this kind of a digital environment where they can easily collaborate and also break those kind of organizational silos. The product was first launched in 2014 and the scale is really massive. And I think this is mainly because of the thought behind the end user experience and how he will interact with the platform. So continuously thinking how to reduce the friction on the one hand, but on the other, continuously adding more features and capabilities to support the various use cases. And talking about how Monday is different to other companies, I think that's really within the culture. There is a very unique culture within Monday. So first of all, there is really radical transparency, I would say. Everything is open to all employees. So if you'll ever visit one of the offices in Israel or in New York or anywhere else, we have lots of dashboards, a lot of screens all over, and anyone can see them. So whether it's clients visiting the office or partners, even people that are coming for interviews, they could see all the numbers out there, which is really, fascinating to see how transparent we are. And I think this also helps in order to avoid this really unnecessary hierarchy. So everyone has visibility and has access to all the information they need, aside from salaries. So everything is open. So I think I find it very unique. And in the beginning, when I joined, you have some questions, how come and how does it really work when everything is open to everybody? But once you settle in and you get the vibes, you suddenly cannot think of a different way to work. And the interesting part is I think this has a lot of influence on the product and vice versa. So I think the reason that we drink our own champagne, we're using Monday internally. And this also kind of influences the product, and also this influences the culture. There is some very interesting dynamics around it. And maybe another interesting example will be from the sales team. So they're not compensated with commission, which is, once again, something that is very unique and different comparing to other companies, other sales organizations. And I'm sure the founders got a lot of pushbacks when they suggested this kind of model in the early days, but it proved to be the best model out there, because eventually this also reduces the friction, especially between partners and sales. So it really allows a really good and solid collaboration, and to focus on the actual work and not unnecessary issues related to commission and so on.
So talk to us about that a little bit more. It sounds like with your guys' approach, it just makes them more collaborative. It just makes them more open, like you were saying about with transparency, just being really open. And in the end, it's about the clients and giving them the solutions that they need, and doing that in a very streamlined, smooth, as smooth as possible. What's like from a partnership perspective, right? Let's kind of open the partnering book at Monday. And let's talk a little bit about the types of partnerships that you are specifically responsible for. And then maybe what are some of from a broader scope of partnerships at Monday, what do some of those partnerships look like?
So the partnership group within the company is very vibrant, and we're kind of doing a lot of interesting things, and some of them are very strategic. So we kind of differentiated into different teams. So we have a tech partnership team focusing on those partnerships with Microsoft, AWS, and large tech vendors, as well as ISVs. We recently launched an apps framework and a marketplace. So we're also looking for ISVs and channel partners and GSIs to publish their applications and their solutions on the marketplace. So that would be one team. We also have a channel partnership team, essentially partnering with the local system integrators and value-added resellers. We have more than 100 partners spreading across the globe. We have a referral program. We have a student program and academic partnerships. And we also have the team which I'm leading, which is the GSIs. So essentially focusing on the global system integrators and creating those strategic alliances with them. In addition to all of that, we also have the training and enablement team, the marketing team, to support all those fascinating initiatives.
So let's dig into the working with the GSIs a little bit. Is that something that your team is specifically responsible for? And then what's some recommendations or some of the lessons learned that maybe you have from doing that work?
Sure. So in the early days when I joined, we're kind of thinking, what is the kind of segment we want to focus on? And we understood that eventually Monday as a platform, we have the notion of building blocks. So you can assemble different building blocks and shape them to fit different kind of use cases that customers need. And this kind of approach is really a consulting-based approach. So we like to think of, client coming with us with some pain, some challenge. They have their idea of how they want to solve a different problem. They have a flow chart or some kind of a blueprint. And Monday serves as the digital platform to really create any kind of idea that you have in mind and to implement it within Monday. So we thought it would be a smart move to partner with those kind of GSIs, because they do three main things. One is providing the advisory part, and then doing the delivery piece of the business, and also doing the managed services. So those three pillars are really part of what we also do with our customers, but we want to focus on the product side. And we prefer to have the ecosystem around us to do the kind of implementation and the managed services whenever it's required. So I think that was a good decision back then to focus on the GSIs and understand what are their motivations, why would they even bother partnering with a company like Monday, and how we could fit within their current offerings. So we went through a long journey of researching and understanding who we want to partner within the GSIs, because there are a lot of GSIs and we need to segment them in many different ways. And then understand, okay, within those very large organizations, and we're talking about really massive companies, 100,000 employees up until 500,000. And they're very metrics oriented, focusing on the industries on the y-axis and on the different business functions on the y-axis. And where do we fit as Monday, which is kind of industry agnostic. We serve any type of company, from manufacturing to telecom, from media and entertainment to large and small technology companies. So who do we want to talk to? Who do we want to go through this kind of partnership journey together in order to make sure that eventually we will better serve the clients together?
So I would imagine that you guys are doing some different tech integrations, different tech partnerships. Can you talk to us a little bit more about, you mentioned kind of the App Store, App Exchange, kind of this platform to go in, but talk to us a little bit about the importance of interoperability or working with other software systems.
So you can think of Monday as, you have this kind of a board or a dashboard where you can visualize all the processes and projects you're managing. And we also add some logic behind the scenes. So one of that would be automation. So reduce redundant work and have those automation running in the background. And also we want to integrate with the third-party systems in order to reflect data from those systems into Monday and the other way around. So we do offer more than 15 native integrations, but we understand that eventually within the SaaS world, you have to be as open as possible. So the launch of the apps framework is really mind-blowing, because I think when we had the first internal hackathon and the builders, the developers, the engineers, they showed us what they developed using the apps framework. That was really insane, because suddenly you could see the different areas and domains in which the platform could go, the kind of solutions that now it's possible to build. And when you open the hood and allow third-party developers and other partners to use the platform as the very fundamental layer of the organization, and on top of that, add their logic, add their domain expertise and ideas, and add their solutions, then the scale is really massive. And nowadays we have a lot of applications on the platform, and we're just in the very beginning. We launched the marketplace less than a quarter ago, and we already see the really great impact that it can create. So working closely with the GSIs and having them develop those kind of integrations and applications is really crucial for our progress going forward.
So I want to ask you, with your team, what's the initiatives that you guys are kind of focused on now, or what's the work that you're doing, the next evolution for your team specifically, you working on behalf of Monday?
Sure. So if we segment companies, not just by industry, but also in terms of their size. So we'll have small, medium businesses, which we also serve. We have the mid-market and we have enterprises. And the reason to partner with those GSIs is in order to further penetrate into the enterprise segment. And we understand that in order to do that, we need close and strong relationship with those GSIs. And the objective for us is to build a center of excellence within each and every GSI and have people within those large organizations that really understand what Monday can do and what is the value that customers can gain from it, but equally understand how it can fit within their existing proposition. So some of them call it a digital workplace, others would call it employee experience or low code, no code. And we want to get into those kind of architecture and integrate into their offering. And so we can have a larger footprint within those large enterprises. So that's the main objective for us. And also, as I mentioned earlier, because we're a product company and we want to keep on, just developing our secret sauce and our offering to customers, we want our partners to be the one that are doing the delivery piece of the business. And so this is also very important for us to have those strong center of excellence within the GSI, so they can also do those very large implementation to customers.
So it sounds like you guys are really, what your core competencies are. You want to focus on that. It's the product side. It's delivering, that solid functionality. And from more of kind of that sales outreach, getting your solutions in the hands of end user customers, you're essentially using this partnering lane as a way to, as a primary way to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I think also the scale the company is going through is really unheard of. We are considered to be one of the fastest growing SaaS companies in the history. I think the third, if to be accurate. And quarter to quarter, things are changing dramatically from the product side, from the scale of the organization, the number of employees, and we need to keep up the pace and always think about, okay, what will be in the next queue, what will be in the next year, and anticipate like what will be the kind of infrastructure we'll need in order to support those kind of opportunities and projects with customers. And I think creating those kind of alliances, and for the sake of this conversation, we're talking specifically about the GSIs, but it's really building the entire ecosystem around us in order to support this massive scale.
What would you say are some of the greatest challenges that you will have as you continue to grow the company? It's growing at a massive rate. There's obviously a lot of opportunity, in front of you, but it's important that we do it right. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges that's facing your team or maybe your company?
Wow, I think there are probably a lot of challenges as equal to the level of opportunities that we face. And it's the kind of feeling you have in a startup that you always run very fast, but you're also fixing the plane while you're flying. So you always think, okay, what kind of infrastructure do we need in order to support the further scale that we're going through? Do we have the right methodologies in place? Do we have the kind of partner academy and certification program to support the creation of those center of excellence? What kind of marketing activities do we want to create around those partnerships and around those app development? And how can we do more with every success that we have along the way? So I think that's a huge challenge. And also specifically within my team, partnering with those large GSIs is a massive challenge, because getting their mind share, getting them to evaluate Monday and think that it could fit within their existing proposition. That's a journey we want to take with them, and it requires some great thinking of who are the right people we want to focus on, and also make sure that we are tailoring our positioning and messaging towards each and every proposition that they offer to the market. So I think there are a lot of customization that we need to do from our end, and to really think about the partner on the other side and how he sees the world. And, not just being focused on, okay, what we are doing and what we want to achieve, but really continuously understanding the other side and how we can do things together.
Well, yeah, it looks like you are really enjoying your time being in this partnering role, specifically, as a follow-up to being a founder of your own tech company. I'd like for you to talk to us a little bit about, what is it about this role of being the director of global strategic alliances? What is it about this role that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's probably the fact that every day is different, and you get to work with a lot of different people within the company, different departments, and also externally you work with fascinating people, people from all over the world, from Japan to London to North America. So I find it really interesting, and the pace of things is really something that every week passes by and you're saying, wow, it just felt like yesterday was the beginning of the week. And I think this is the kind of feeling I always wanted, never to feel that I'm working, but rather, just playing and trying to do the best in every circumstance. So probably those would be like the main attributes which I find interesting. And I think in general, doing partnerships requires all the different skill sets and departments within the organization to support that. So you'll need to have good positioning and messaging. You'll need to work closely with marketing, but equally, you also need to work with legal. You need to work with finance on the commercial side of the partnership. And then when it gets to the real thing, you work with the sales team and the customer success. And I think creating those kind of pods to work on specific projects is really exciting, because getting those kind of RFPs from the GSIs, working together with a partner and within those different departments within the organization, I find it super exciting.
Well, it's interesting how many people similar to your background that we run into that are lead partnering teams, how many of them have had their own businesses? Because there's a lot of similarities, a lot of what you just walked through. There's a lot of similarities to being in this biz dev, strategic partnering, strategic alliance role and running your own company. Because what you have to know and understand is all the different components of the business and how your partnerships can affect your business and vice versa, just being able to connect those dots all the way, forward and backwards. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. And probably the main difference is that you don't need to raise capital. And that's something that, it takes a lot of time as a founder. The amount of times I got a no, and you need to stand up again and find a different path. It's pretty challenging and gets you also out of focus of, developing the product or the solution or the service or whatever it is that you're doing. So I think building those kind of partnerships is really focusing just on the business side of things, which is really great.
So talk to us a little bit about, so you're leading a team there at Monday. What kind of advice would you have for other, directors, VPs, people who are leading partnership teams? What's some advice that you would have as far as, maybe hiring new people and how to evolve and build your team, how to develop your teams, those individuals, and help them build skills, build knowledge? What kind of advice would you have?
That's an interesting question. I think I approach it maybe a little bit differently than what others would have done. I try to recruit people that are smarter and better than me and that I can learn from them. Eventually we're looking also to build a team. And I think that's also something important, because we don't want people to create a certain square that they will be part of, and they will have like a very detailed and thought through day-to-day work, but rather have them come see what's going on and bring their own experience and expertise and ideas to the table. And also equally having like a good collaboration within the team, because eventually if we are partnering with those global system integrators, if we have success in EMEA, we want to replicate that in North America and in APAC. So I think working as a team and not just as a bunch of individuals is also very important in my point of view. And that's how I'm trying to build the team.
Yeah, that's great insights. One last question for you before we let you go. I'd like to just know, what do you see as being the most challenging part of this role in general that that you have as a partnering professional? What's the thing that you find to be the most challenging?
I think working with the GSIs, we understand sometimes things that are kind of ahead of the curve. We see the landscape in front of us. We see the massive opportunities that we can go through together with the GSIs, but we need also to draw the line how to get there in a gradual way. And that's sometimes challenging, because there are areas in which we have to build the alliance to begin those kind of journeys together. And it takes time, from finding those executive sponsors to building the go-to-market and signing those commercial agreements. But we also look to those kind of, what I say, golden shortcuts, because sometimes we also have those kind of inbound coming in. They're asking us if we want to join some RFP they're doing. And we need to be very selective on those kind of opportunities, and also identify what we can get out of those opportunities aside from winning the business, how this can help us to drive those partnerships going forward. So I think also thinking where Monday's heading, what's the strategy, and how do we combine that with those partnerships that we are building. That's also very important to make sure that we are aligned to the overall strategy of the organization.
Yeah, awesome insights. Eyal, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you spending some time with us, staying after work, staying late there in Israel, and sharing your insights with us. But it'll be fun to continue to watch you and watch Monday and see the great things that you guys accomplish into the future.
Mark, I enjoyed every minute. Thanks for having me.
Partnernomics Podcast is brought to you by Partnernomics. Learn how to leverage the power of partnership. To listen to more episodes of Partnernomics Podcast, visit partnernomics.com.